we're all being controlled by the rich and powerful, exploited. But that doesn't mean we can't put a stop to it. Of course, we must only do it with peace and love, because the rich and powerful even know peace and love is the greatest weapon of all. Doesn't mean we can't show some force, of course. But once we understand and tap into the true essence of peace and love, God, the inner Jesus, we can be free. Free from pain and suffering. So join me on this podcast journey. This is the Brain Melting Podcast. Welcome to the Brain Melting Podcast. Are you ready to melt your brain in a positive way? Are you ready to break out of your meat suit? We as humans understand that there's more to life than this. Whether it would be your spiritual journey, your physical journey, or maybe you're just looking into these things for the first time and you're realizing, yes, the world is messed up, but can I do anything about it? The answer? Difficult, but you can. It starts with community. It starts with the Jesus within, or whatever God you worship, of course. I'm not here to push Christianity on you. I don't believe in Christian naturalism. I think that's not real Christianity. And I think the reason why a lot of people get turned off from Christ is because of Christian naturalism. It's not right. I think a lot of people don't even understand, and I don't mean just, people who are atheists, but I'm talking about people who claim to be Christians too. A lot of people don't know the real Jesus. Because the real Jesus, he fed the poor. He worked with the poor. He worked with sinners. He worked with the outcasts, like me, the outcasts. He worked with people who were poets and so on. I think by the time goes by, we forget about all of this. You see, it is true that the world is controlled not by lizard people or the Illuminati or anything like that, but they're controlled by the rich and powerful. Which, if you really think about it, is our generation's Illuminati. It's our generation's, the elite system. Under the wake of the Epstein files, it broke me so hard. Not because I didn't know any of this stuff is happening, but because it confirmed what I was saying is true, and the last thing I wanted to be is true. I thought maybe it wasn't going to be that bad. I knew it was going to be bad. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. And once I'm true, I'm not that type of person who goes, ha, I told you guys I'm right. Because I don't want to be truthful. I don't want to be true about that. There's a billion of other things I want to be true about, but not that. But I think keeping a positive mind, and I know it's hard, can reawaken you positivity and even more. Not to keep a blind eye or put your head in the sand, of course. But just know you are special. Everybody is different, unique, individual, and special. And I just want to point out before anybody tells me in the comments, I get not every rich person is necessarily bad. No. Everybody is falling, of course. We all have problems. And yeah, I get that. But the type of people we should be watching out for, right, is people who are rich and network with not just other rich people, but with celebrities and very powerful people like politicians. That's the type of people we should be looking out for. Because networks and on networks is the reason why we're controlled. The poor working class, let's face it, we're controlled by a lot of different things. And a lot of them I'm guilty of, because I like a lot of these things, but I'm trying to give them up. But for example, fast food, yes, it tastes good, but it's very unhealthy. Well, I say it tastes good, but wait, the quality of it is going down. Trashy TV. Many people still watch trashy TV, which is weird to me because TV is kind of out and gone almost. It's kind of like the radio in the way where, it was popular at one time, but it slowly goes away. Not to say it's not there, but it's like the radio. It's almost on its way out. It's just the last interest of it, but still, trashy TV, the news in general, all controlled by the same networking, by these rich and powerful elites. We're often told that we can't do anything about it, so we might as well live our own lives. And well, some of it may be true, like we should live our own lives. But that doesn't mean we can't do anything about it. Think about it this way. We have a power to boycott things. Think if 1 billion people decide to not eat fast food anymore, there will be change in the system. After all, capitalism, as flawed as it is, and no, I'm not necessarily against all forms of capitalism. Against super hyper active capitalism, but one good thing about capitalism, once people cry for change in a good way, it would just be removed, And I'm not necessarily saying beat the system with the system, but sometimes you got to. Sometimes you have to play the game to either to change the game, as messed up as that sounds. But in a way, it's kind of beautiful if you think about it, because once we can play, okay, we're going to play this game of we'll boycott something by, and that goes away. Picture what else we can do. If we can somehow, of our government, can boycott war. Now, I know that's a little difficult in what it sounds, I get it. But if we can somehow boycott war, or at least limit the number of wars we go in, Trump, perhaps we can somehow end war, at least end some wars, or hopefully all wars. I often said the hippies were not perfect, but they were right. I consider myself to be a modern hippie, and let me tell you something, folks. I don't think the hippies were bad. Flawed, yes, but not bad. Were there some hippies what were bad? Yeah, Charles Manson. But that wasn't all hippies. In fact, most hippies just wanted to make a better world for you and me. You know, I think it's important to understand that we often think affection, perfectness means greatness. It doesn't, because nobody's perfect. Nobody's nobody's like that. But, however, it is possible to want great things. That's what I said in my video before. Just because we're not perfect doesn't mean we can't want great things. Good things or even great things. We're all in this together after all. I think overall, the rich and powerful need to understand that they're not going to be ruining us anymore. With the wake of things like the Epstein files or the war in... Where are we now? I lost track of how many wars we're in. But, I think people are sending a message that we do not want to go to war anymore. We want the Epstein files to be, all of it to be released. Even point where we undetected, the criminals, not the victims. Keep the victims safe, of course, but show the criminals. Show the perpetrators and what's arrest them. It's that simple. But they act like it's not simple because they're hiding something. The rich and powerful. It's kind of like a game of when you were a kid and you used to put your hand in the cookie jar and your mom and dad or someone would catch you and you would I didn't put my hand in the cookie jar. That's what they're doing at this point. The rich and powerful in our government are mentally children, which is interesting because I often said if we knew what it's like to be children, the world would be a better place. I don't think that's contradictory though, because let's face it, folks, children don't hate unless they're taught to. I don't think I take it back. I don't think these people have a mind of children. I think they just have a mind of immatureness, which is different. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I'm going to be making more of these and such. But you have a good day and stay groovy, my friends. This has been the Brain Melting Podcast. Actually, it's funny. I was thinking if I should call it the Brain Exploding Podcast, but I think I'm just going to call it the Brain Melting Podcast because that's cooler. Okay, have a good day.